Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Across the Fence, I'm Fran Stoddard. One of the many joys of spring in Vermont is what happens in the sugar house. Every year, Vermont leads the nation in the production of maple syrup. So, for our first segment today, we're heading to UVM's Proctor Maple Research Center in Underhill Center. That's where researchers are putting the latest technology and science to the test to help sugar makers make more of the sweet stuff.
We're maybe about early in the season, a quarter to a third of the way into the season. It started late. We don't know how it's going to finish up. We never really know until it's done. But we're pretty happy with where we are right now. Well, we've been working on a project trying to upgrade the sugar house for a number of reasons. One was to make it as time efficient as possible so that we could do things very, very quickly, move things around easily. But the other part of it was to upgrade it to look more like a modern food processing facility, because that's really where a lot of the industry is going. There are plenty of people who make maple syrup as a hobby and use sugar houses that are quaint in some ways. And our sugar house was similar to that, but we've tried to make it more of a modern facility by having wash-down walls, cement floor, good drainage, and just very good facilities in terms of access to air, because we use air for a lot of pumps, access to various components of plumbing, and overall just to upgrade the sugar house. This is a very high-tech evaporator. There are a few of them in Canada and a few in the US. It's a LaPierre volcano system that's designed specifically to be used with their HyperBricks reverse osmosis system. So the primary difference in this evaporator is that normally an evaporator will have a very large back pan where there's a lot of evaporation taking place and a very small front pan where the finishing takes place. In this case, because we're concentrating to such high bricks to begin with, we don't need to evaporate a lot. We're only having to evaporate 2.5 gallons of liquid to make a gallon of syrup. Most of the time, you're going to find it's going to be in the range of about 10 to 15 gallons that most maple producers using reverse osmosis would have to boil. For people who are boiling raw sap, they'd have to boil about 40 gallons of liquid off to make a gallon of sap. So this method is very, very efficient, fuel efficient. And the reason we have a much, much larger front pan is because we want to allow there to be time for good color and flavor development that is characteristic of maple. We want the process to be just as smooth as it possibly can. So this type of valve is called a modulating draw-off valve, and it opens and closes proportional to the temperature that you set it at. So if we're drawing off today at 216, it's going to start to open a little before it gets to 216, and it's going to open a little bit and then open more as it gets closer to the set point, and as it drops below that, it'll close. So there's never any real open, close action. It's always just a sort of smooth transition from low flow to higher flow, but generally it just runs a fairly constant stream most of the time. But it's just reducing the number of times that we have to boil in the sugar house. It's really unusual because there's a big investment in the equipment here to do this, but we're also trying to save our investment in time and labor, and that's what we're really focusing on. The other thing that we do that's somewhat different is rather than boiling every single day that we make concentrate is what comes out of the RO, so they're very perishable and you need to process them very quickly. What we've done is decouple that step so that we don't need to boil every time we concentrate. We instead will put it into a refrigerated bulk tank, and it's stored at about 25 degrees Fahrenheit, where there is no microbial degradation that can occur at that temperature. So we'll hold our concentrate until we have 1,000 gallons or more, and then boil one long boil instead of doing a lot of little boils. And the reason that is very helpful is because every time you boil, you need to clean. And cleaning can take several hours. So if we can, instead of boil 20 to 30 times a year, if we can boil only 4 to 5 times a year, we've cut back tremendously on the amount of time we spend in the sugar house. And the important thing that we know from a lot of research and practice is the time in the sugar house is time that is just, while you're making syrup, you're making a great product, it's time that's taking away from where the real money is made. You make your money in the woods and by getting as good a yield as possible. So by reducing the amount of time we spend in the sugar house, we get to spend more time in the woods and have great yields to show for it.
Sugar makers all over the world rely on the research being done at Proctor. So our hats off to all of the maple specialists at the Proctor Center. One of those specialists is Mark Isselhart, the UVM Extension maple educator. Mark supports producers with important information on a host of topics, including color, density, and clarity of maple syrup. Here's Mark to tell us how professionals judge the clarity of their maple.
Making quality pure maple syrup requires a lot of hard work and careful attention to detail. From the tree to the bottle, many steps are required to produce the high-quality product that sugar makers are known for and customers expect. Hello, this is Mark Isselhart from the University of Vermont Extension Maple Program. There are 4 grades of pure maple syrup that can be sold in a retail container. They are golden color, delicate taste, amber color, rich taste, dark color, robust taste, and very dark color, strong taste. It is up to the producer, or whomever's name appears on the retail container, to correctly identify which grade their syrup falls. While color and flavor are the 2 most distinguishing characteristics of maple syrup, all syrup must meet the legal standard in 4 categories: color, clarity, flavor, and density. This video will cover the basics of clarity grading maple syrup. During the process of boiling maple sap into syrup, the minerals naturally found in sap become concentrated at the point of saturation. When that point is reached, particles, made mostly of calcium, form and become suspended in the syrup. This suspended material is commonly known as sugar sand. Sugar sand is a broad term used for any material that forms during evaporation. Most of the time, sugar sand gives unfiltered syrup a cloudy appearance and gritty texture. Occasionally, this material will be soft or appear oily. Whatever the form sugar sand takes, it must be removed before being ready for consumption. Maple regulations require that only clear, clean maple syrup is allowed in a retail container. Being able to accurately determine if syrup is clear and ready for sale is the job of the sugar maker. From the time-honored cloth gravity filter to modern high-tech filter presses, sugar makers have several methods of filtering their syrup. Acceptable filtering can be achieved with both gravity and pressure filters. Ultimately, the method of filtering is less important than the quality of filtering. Sugar makers need to check each batch of syrup being filtered, even if they've been using a particular method for many years. Not all syrup will filter easily. Producers must pay particular attention when filtering late-season syrup, since these tend to be the most difficult batches of syrup to filter. If the syrup coming out of your filter is not clean and clear, there is likely an issue with the filtering equipment or how the filter is set up, and the syrup must be filtered again. More sugar sand can form after syrup has been filtered if that syrup is reheated and allowed to boil or is kept hot for a long period of time. Poorly filtered syrup coming from gravity filters may be the result of damage to the fabric material. This damage can occur if the cloth material is excessively twisted or wrung out during cleaning. Pressure filters come in many sizes and styles and rely on a pump instead of the weight of the syrup to force unfiltered syrup through the filter. There can be issues with pressure filters producing poor results. Most of the time, these issues come from improperly setting up the filter or from exceeding the filter's capacity. If you are using a pressure filter, make sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for setup and operation. This includes paying close attention to the pressure gauge, as it is the best indication of how close the press is to being full. Occasionally, air bubbles associated with the pumping of syrup can make the syrup appear unfiltered or poorly filtered. Allowing samples to sit for a period of time will help determine if the sample is well filtered. The following steps can help with the clarity grading process. Only well-filtered syrup can be graded for clarity. Unfiltered or poorly filtered syrup will appear darker than well-filtered syrup and will impact color grading. The most common causes of cloudy syrup are filters not set up or used incorrectly, and new sugar sand formed by allowing syrup to heat up excessively. There are resources available if you would like more information or continue to have issues with poorly filtered or cloudy syrup and would like help to determine from where the issue lays. A narrated slideshow titled Fundamentals of Filtering Maple Syrup, as well as other documents related to operation of pressure filters, can be found at the UVM Extension Maple website. Pure maple syrup is a truly special food product. It takes lots of effort and skill to produce the quality product consumers expect. By tasting all the batches of syrup you produce and labeling appropriately, you can make sure that only high-quality syrup reaches a retail customer. Please check out more information on this and other issues related to production of pure maple syrup at the University of Vermont Extension Maple page. On behalf of the UVM Extension Maple program, I'm Mark Isselhart.
Our thanks to Mark, and as always, thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.